You never know where inspiration's going to come from. It may come from a rolling pin. It may come from a quilter. It may come, you never know. But you got to stay in the game. At the worst time, when you're so embarrassed by being chewed out, you know, that song, you get knocked down, you get up again. And that happens in life, whether it's in real estate. You're going to buy a property and it's not going to work out. It's going to be tough. Well, what do? You head west and figure the thing out.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Our guest today is Steve Nabity. Steve and I had an amazing conversation and definitely took some turns that I did not expect. I think that he didn't expect either. A little bit about him, and it's just even this in bio is not going to do him justice by any means. But he's a managing partner of Skyline Point Capital, 5,500 plus units, multifamily units, plus a handful of mixed unit use properties, Dallas, Nashville, Charlotte, Omaha, former chairman and CEO of an international consumer product company, which he's going to get into as well. Ranked 10th in all world Ironman triathlons in the 60 to 64 age group. Forbes, a real estate columnist, author, Amazon bestseller, just an amazing man. I enjoyed this conversation. He is I loved his path to real estate, and we're going to do 2 segments together, and we almost didn't get even to the real estate business. But you're going to learn so much from Steve, and I hope that even in this first segment here, you'll listen to the end, because it just took a turn that I never expected. I love it when guests share just so transparently, right? It's where we're all in life and things happen, right? And sometimes we called it, or we put on that Facebook front, right? You only see the smiles, you only hear of the successes and the great things that are the things that seem so great. You don't hear often enough about the trials in between there, right? And Steve was so transparent today. You're going to learn so much from him. He and I both shared some things and had just an amazing conversation. And so I hope you enjoy and you learn and are inspired as well. Steve, I'm excited to interview you and hear more about your story. Just a few things you've shared before we started recording have definitely piqued my interest, and just learning from you and some of the amazing things that you have accomplished. And I want to dive into how you've done that right today and probably tomorrow as well. And so the listeners and I can learn from you. So, Steve, welcome to the show.
Whitney, it's a pleasure being on the show, and I look forward to having a great conversation. And as we talked earlier, being able to talk about my journey heading west.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And I think so often when we look back, we can call it history, but look back at people's journeys, you know, there's numerous people even hundreds of years ago, right? The more we learn about them, we can learn so much from them. But even somebody like yourself, that was hundreds of years ago, but even in the, more recently, right? You've done some amazing things. You've accomplished a lot. You've been able to scale those hurdles, right? Or those mountains or whatever it may be, those obstacles that's come in front of you. And it's unfortunate. Many people are not ready to do that, or sometimes they quit, right? When things get difficult, but you did not. And so I'm looking forward to diving in. Let's go back a little bit. I want to hear more about this story. And because I think it's shaped you, right, in so many ways, and now you're able to help so many others with some of those same issues, right? Or maybe even before they face that mountain, you're helping them be prepared, right, for the mountain when it comes, because no doubt it's coming. So let's dive in, Steve, a little bit. Let's back up in your story, and because I know it hasn't always been real estate for you, but man, it sounds like you've learned a lot in business, and now been able to apply that in real estate. So I want to learn from you in that regard.
Whitney, it's the journey started years back, and it started with a phone call at 4 a.m. And on the phone, with that phone call, nothing good happens at 4 a.m. when you get a phone call. And it was my general manager on the phone saying it got struck by lightning, and and you're thinking, what got struck by lightning? Well, she told me at 4 a.m. that the manufacturing company that I just bought got hit by lightning, and 80% of it is burning to the ground. And it was a 100,000 square foot facility. And Whitney, I had just moved my family back to Omaha from Kansas City 3 months earlier. I put all my money into this company. It employed 50 people. So this was my launching platform. I had all my eggs in one basket. Everything I had was in this company, and it was burning to the ground. Well, the warehouse, by the time it was all over and done with, the building, 80% of it burnt down. Come to find out, I was underinsured. These are things you don't do. You have one customer, one product, and one building. That is not a great formula for trying to diversify your risk. So after the business burnt down, we kind of figured out, could we come back in business? And so we came back. Instead of 50 employees, we came back with 9. And I told myself, never, ever again am I going to have all my eggs in one basket. So after that, I was on a journey. How do I diversify this business? How do I make this thing happen? And my brother-in-law came to me, and he said he went to this educational trade show, and he saw this booth that had a letter cutting system, cutting out letters, shapes, and numbers for elementary schools, where you would, way back then, if you're going to decorate a bulletin board, you would see these shapes cut out. Normally they cut them out with scissors, but this company had a machine, and the booth was packed. And I'm a mechanical engineer by degree, and he was a marketing guy. And he came back and said, Steve, can you build this machine? Let's compete with these guys. No problem. 6 months later, I failed miserably, absolutely miserably. And we met and decided we're going to give up our dream of having another business to compete with this company. And basically what the company was making was a sharp cookie cutter. You put a piece of paper on top, you press it down, and out comes a letter and a number. And teachers would put them on bulletin boards, and they'd use them for class lessons. So my first business was electronic manufacturing, and now I'm talking about educational products. Ask me how they meet, they don't, but I was diversifying. I had to figure out that if I lost one thing, I would still have another income stream. So we failed at this miserably, and about 2 weeks later, after we decided not to do the business, I'm in the kitchen. And on the kitchen table was the prototype cookie cutter sitting on the kitchen table, and it was a jack-o'-lantern. And when I looked at it, it reminded me of the failure. Like, how come you couldn't figure this thing out? And on the counter, my wife had made cookies, and next to the cookies was a rolling pin. A rolling pin. And I looked down at the table and saw the jack-o'-lantern cookie cutter. And I looked over at the rolling pin, and you do one of these. And I went, no, there's no way. So I took the rolling pin, I picked it up, put a piece of paper on top the cookie cutter, and rolled the rolling pin over the top. What? Here it is. This is the rolling pin with marks in it, and it's been signed by the employees. This rolling pin, this idea came up it just came up. You never know where ideas are going to come from. You could be on a lawnmower. You could be on a horse. You could be heading west in western Nebraska. You never, ever know. So this rolling pin, I went down the path of a machine that has a roller, and we started a company, and it was called AccuCut. And now I had the electronic manufacturing, and now I had AccuCut. We made shape and letter cutting systems for schools and daycares. And it's like, okay, we're starting to diversify. We're starting to figure out what goes on. I'll tell you another story. And then over the years, AccuCut grew, and we were in 75% of the elementary schools.
Wow.
As we grew, the the team, I mean, as we started growing, one of the things that we learned and realized after the fire burning down and starting AccuCut with the business, electronic manufacturing, and it reminded me of an African parable. And you've probably heard it about the gazelle and the lion. Have you heard that?
It sounds familiar.
Okay. Let me just, in Africa, and it's an African parable, a gazelle wakes up in the morning and it knows that it has to outrun the fastest lion. A lion wakes up in the morning and it knows it has to outrun the slowest gazelle. Because if the gazelle doesn't run faster than the fastest lion, it's going to be killed. And if the lion doesn't get up and run faster than the slowest gazelle, it's going to starve to death. And the moral of the story, and this was kind of our mantra, when the sun comes up, you got to run. If you're the lion or the gazelle, you need to start running. And that was our mindset. You just have to start running. So the question is, where do you run? Where do you run? As we grow in these businesses, and the AccuCut was the education company, we started hearing about quilters wanting to cut fabric. I know nothing. I'm not a quilter. I know nothing about quilting. And our marketing and sales team said, Steve, you need to go to this quilt show because they're buying our product, not knowing why. They're using it. We're just cutting out fabric. And okay, now we're looking at how else can we diversify. And so I go to the quilt show and our booth is packed. People are buying our product left and right. And the quilters were mad. Have you ever been to the largest quilt show in the world?
Every year.
Every year. That's what everybody says. It's every year. It's in Houston, Texas, and it's called the International Quilt Festival. It's 4 days of 60,000 quilters.
Never heard of it.
And I'm telling you, I didn't go to school to be a quilter. But this is how life is, and we'll talk about that. But I go to the quilt show, and quilters are in line to buy our product, not knowing why. They were mad. They were getting upset with us. And so you know how you're at the ice cream shop, and you get ticket number, not your number 9, and my person behind you is number 10? We're taking pieces of paper. I'm the president there. I know nothing about quilting, and they're all mad. And so I rip pieces of paper and put numbers on them, and I start handing them out. Whitney, you're number 9 in line to order our product, because cutting fabric and paper are totally two different things. So I'm in line there, handing these things out. And one thing, this quilter starts walking up to me. I mean, how we make eye connection? I'm going, oh no, I'm in trouble. If you know anything about quilters, they're passionate, average age 62. They give you their opinion. That's what I love about it. So she came up and asked me a question about quilting. I knew nothing. One of the things, that phrase, you fake it until you make it. I faked it, and she literally, this is no joke. She took her finger and pointed it right at me. And this is it. You're president of this company. You don't know anything about quilting. You're scrapbook. We're not a scrapbooker. You should be ashamed and embarrassed of yourself in front of everybody. My employees heard it. My customers heard it. And the neat thing from that, I wanted to crawl in a hole. I was on the plane the next morning, and thinking about, I'm never going to another quilt show. And then you started thinking about this. This was in 2007 and 8. What a better time. You got quilters that are so passionate. Nobody's doing it in the marketplace. Let's figure it out. So we started AccuQuilt. And the point of that is that, Whitney, you never know where inspiration is going to come from. It may come from a rolling pin. It may come from a quilter. You never know. But you got to stay in the game at the worst time, when you're so embarrassed by being chewed out. You know, that song, you get knocked down, you get up again. And that happens in life, whether it's in real estate. You're going to buy a property and it's not going to work out. It's going to be tough. Well, what do? You head west and figure the thing out. And that's life. And one of my my major triathlon coach, he said there's only two things that you can control, and that's your attitude and your effort. And if you can control those two, you can do amazing things. So now I've got two companies. I've got three companies now. And over the journey of that time frame, again, diversify your assets. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. One of the phrases, I've used the word heading west. In our companies, heading west kind of described our core values and what that is. But I'll just describe briefly what heading west means. Is that there's times in life that you think you want to do something, but you don't have enough information. And so you'll gather more, and you can turn into the paralysis by analysis that everybody knows about. But heading west means I may only have 30% of the information. Start heading west and figure out what information you need, and you will figure it out. But if you don't get moving, if you don't move in, like we did with AccuQuilt for the quilting product in 2007 and 8 in the financial crisis, we didn't know anything about quilting. And we figured it out. And that led us to multiple companies after that. That was the start of Tech Brands, the company we ended up selling to private equity.
I wanted to get to that part at least, but I love that there's so many things there you mentioned, and even you going to this quilting show seems so random, right? I mean, it seems like somebody said go to a quilt show. Like, I would. Why would I go to a quilt show, right? But it's interesting what happened there, and even this lady coming up to you, and that could have been just right. You were thinking, that hit you hard, right, in front of everybody, in front of your team. But you just called it inspiration, right? You never know where inspiration is going to come from. Where I think a lot of times it's hard for us to see that as inspiration, right, or in a good light, or turn it to a positive. And sounds like that's exactly what you did.
Well, and again, remember when I got chewed out in front of everybody and I wanted to crawl in a hole, I felt that for 24 hours. And then you're on a plane. And if you step back a little bit in life, it could be anything, stuff that could happen right in front of you, and you think you're never going to get through it. Step back, take a breath, and try to I look at it as going up 60,000 feet. Look up 60,000 feet. And is there something there? And have you heard about the pony, the two kids and the pony in the bedroom?
No, I have not.
And this is another thing to look at. There's two kids, a brother and a sister, and they're 10 years old. And they go into their bedroom, and there's a pile of horse manure. The daughter goes, she sees the pile of horse manure, and the daughter goes and runs out of the bedroom and goes to mom, mommy, there's a pile of horse manure in the bedroom. Her brother goes out and goes, mommy, there's a pile of horse manure in the bedroom. There's got to be a pony around here. So you may be stepping in it. You may be there. There may be a pony in this. And getting chewed out from a quilter, there was a pony. There was an absolute pony. And I'm going to tell you another story about the quilting thing. And this is one of the things when you're going to be working with experts. You'll be working with experts in your business life, whether in real estate, mentors, and et cetera. And when we started AccuQuilt, we then started coming up with other products. Since we didn't know anything about quilting, we hired experts. We did focus groups and research, interviewed quilters, did everything we could figure out how to get a product. after all the research in the focus group, this company, this brand, really smart brand company, came up to our company after all the research and said, big report, don't do it. Do not go in the quilting business. Stick with your other company. Nobody wants your product. Nobody, it's going to cost too much. You're going to lose too much money. You know what we said at the end? BS, we're doing it.
So you're going west.
We're heading west. We're going to do it. There's times in life, Whitney, where your gut tells you to do something when everybody else says no. And, you know, like Warren Buffett, not that it's that thing, but when everybody's going in, you go out. When everybody's going out, you go in. And at that time, we really didn't know anything about what Warren Buffett was saying. But you're going to come in life, personally, family, whatever, business, where you may have to go and buck the system and go against the grain. You're going to have to.
You know, when we started our real estate business, we pretty much had to sell what we did. It's not pretty much. We sold the farm so we could do it. And we were starting another adoption process at the time. We knew there was going to be another 50 to 75,000 to make that happen. And we were starting a business. And so I was training horses professionally, and I was a federal agent at the same time. But the listeners have heard that story. But you know, we had to sell the farm, and most people around us thought, "What is going on there? They've lost their minds. Like, what is happening at their house, right? Something bad has happened, you know?" But we were going against the grain. We were going against what our you know, the people that surrounded us at that time, you know, would have ever done, right, for the most part, including our family. And then, but it also reminded me when you said that of when we started the daily podcast, right? Most people were like, "Whitney, that's crazy. Why would you do that?" You know, almost 1,800 shows later, you know, we're still going. So we had to figure it out. But we still kind of went against the grain, you know, and it paid off, you know, in a big way to do that. So I can relate to that on numerous instances, but that's just two.
How did you deal with that with your family and they're thinking you're an idiot? And sometimes I take that word as a badge of honor because I've heard the same thing. But how'd you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because you know, we weren't. I wasn't raised in a wealthy family or around people that thought like an entrepreneur or pushed themselves. You know, like that wasn't something. You know, it's like I probably had one of the best jobs of anybody in our family, and at the time, you know, federally, and probably one of the nicer homes as well. And so to them, man, it just looked crazy, right? Why would you do this? But I think that my wife and I had a bigger mission, and we had a bigger plan, and our mission. We have a foundation that helps families adopt children, and so it helps them with the financial burden. And so we had a big commitment there, and it was something that was very close to home, obviously for us, as we're about to bring our fourth child home through adoption in just a couple of weeks. And so,
awesome.
So it's something that connected to not only myself but my wife in a big way, and also our children, right? And so it was that mission. When times were tough, you know, or we hear those things, like, you know, like you were talking about, you know, somebody comes and puts their finger in your face, say you're crazy, or what's happening, you know. So you know what, it's bigger than you can see, right? It's like it's bigger than that person could see at the time, and I think we just had to kind of have our head down, in a sense, you know, in blinder zone, right, and just be focused on the mission, no matter what the naysayers were saying, and almost let that motivate us even more.
How did you and your wife, were you guys in alignment when you were starting the businesses and et cetera? Were you guys a team in that mindset, or was she going, "Oh no, Whitney, we can't do this," or "It's not a good idea"?
You know, I'll never forget. We were signing up. I knew I needed a mentor, right, Steve? And I'd failed somewhat in real estate in the past, and then I just thought, man, I got to have somebody that's right there. You know, you got to have somebody on our side that's been there and done that. And this mentor I found that I really that I wanted to sign up with, it was like $12,500, and at the time, my wife and I were like, "I don't know if we can do it." You know, and she was like, "We can't do that. What do we do?" You know, like, we can't do that. You know, and it's the best $12,500 ever. I mean, it's like 75 to 100,000 to work with this guy now. I mean, he's a good friend of mine now. We've worked together for years. But all I had to say, you know, there's times like that where we got to work through those things. But the thing that we were together on and always have been, and is, I mean, just credit this to the Lord, but is our mission. And being focused on, you know, helping these families adopt. And we do that through the real estate business, or we fund it that way, of course, and it's grown bigger than that now. Obviously, there's a lot of other donors now, but yes, to answer your question, it's been a real blessing. I couldn't have done it without her support. I mean, there's just no way. She completely ran everything in the house and the kids, for a few years while I was, just working nonstop and traveling nonstop, right? And so it was definitely a team effort in a massive way. She's my counselor and my first, or my best partner, right? So, yeah,
absolutely. I met my wife in 8th grade, and we've been married for 45 years. Just last August 19th this year, 45 years. But in that journey of life, we had a daughter that was born with congenital heart defect. And they said she was going to live for 3 days. Well, through a series of surgeries and et cetera, there was one final surgery left, and that was at Stanford. There were other disabilities with that, but she graduated from high school and et cetera. We had surgery at Stanford. Surgery went great. Intensive care went bad. And a dad, after 8 weeks, had to pull the plug. Goodness. And statistically, families that have lost a child never stay together. And if it wasn't for Jesus Christ, we would have never made it. And we all come across with adversities and thing in life. And life's not easy. Life's not easy. And as you head down that journey, in life, you're going to come across things. And we're a very strong spiritual family. We are now grandparents, and we're heading up R&R. And I wasn't going to talk about this, but it made me I got a little nudge to talk about it. One of the things we've got 4 grandkids, and one of the things we want to do in our last lap of life. I'm 67. Okay, 67. Last lap of life is how do you want to finish strong in life? And one of the things that was on our heart is grandparenting. And there's an organization called Legacy Coalition, run by Larry Fowler, who used to do Awanas. And it's all about helping grandparents to be intentional grandparents, to lean in. And that's one of our, what you're doing with your foundation for adoption. We want to help grandparents lean into their grandkids for the next generation and their kids, and et cetera. It's, as you know, in life, it could be about real estate. It could be about quilting. It could be about starting companies. It could be about all this. But both Lynette and I feel like there's a higher calling of what do we do? Why are we doing what we're doing? And so anyway, I don't know why I went down that path.
No, I appreciate you sharing. I think that's a pretty amazing part of your story. And the more I'm learning about you, and I think it's very inspirational. I completely agree. So my wife and I go back often and talk about that time, because selling the farm, us moving to an area of town maybe that wasn't great. I mean, like we could go on and on about it, but I appreciate your faith and you sharing about your walk with the Lord. And because we look back and think, man, how did we do that? And the only thing we can point to is just the Lord giving us stamina that wasn't, it wasn't of me to keep going, right? And have the faith to keep going, on and on and on and on. And so it's only Christ that strengthened us. And it's the only reason we're also married through that time. People say, what? Well, how did you all make that work? And I'm like, I don't even know, other than just the Lord uniting my wife and I, and making us even come out stronger on the other side, because of it.
And that is so true. And even after that, there's still ups and downs. And as we look back, both Lynette and I sit there and go, how do we make it through this? How did we make it through? And like I say, if you lose a child, they say 97 to 98% get divorced.
Wow.
And I married up. Absolutely. Absolutely married up. And but she is we are best friends, and everything we do together. And we were talking about this last night with some friends, in the sense of Lynette has supported me, like your wife has supported you. How can we do things together? And in this we call it the last lap, the last chapter. How can we do this together? And that is one of my ultimate things. How can we do things together? And real estate provides that. Real estate, in that vesting, in that plan C to diversify, does that. We do things together. We go look at properties together. We go see things. And she thinks I'm nuts. Badge of honor. But, I'm the more visionary, strategic person. She's the more realist, and which is a great balance to us.
For sure.
And she's more detailed. I'm more outgoing. But I'm blessed. I am blessed. I have a great wife.
Steve, that's a great place to end this segment. And I want the listeners to know we're going to get to spend more time with Steve and continue the conversation. This segment definitely took a turn that I didn't expect, but I love shows like that. I think listeners enjoy that too. It's a different part of our lives that most people don't ever share, right? And so, but it's oftentimes the most encouraging, and things that, man, it's you don't hear anywhere else. So, Steve, grateful for your time today and your willingness to be so transparent and helping us with, man, just life, right? And how you all
doing life
through the tough times and business and family. It's definitely connected, right? And so, Steve, thank you again. How can the listeners get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Thanks, Whitney. The people can get a hold of me at skylinepointcapital.com and email me at steve.nabity@skylinepointcapital.com.
Thank you for being with us again today. I hope that you have learned a lot from the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you're telling your friends about the Real Estate Syndication Show and how they can also build wealth in real estate. You can also go to lifebridgecapital.com and start investing today.